have waited long enough. This is Do It Already, the podcast that gets you out of your head and into your power. We talk mindset, neuroscience, and the no BS truth about what it really takes to change your life. Starting now. In this episode, I am breaking down how your thoughts literally shape your reality. And please don't roll your eyes at me because this is not just some Pinterest board, just think positive. I am literally diving into the real science behind it. The neuroplasticity, the wiring, and the chemistry. All the wild ways your brain turns what you think into what you experience throughout life. So here's the thing. Your brain is listening all the time. Every thought you think, every word you say to yourself, every scenario you replay in your head, your brain is treating this like data. And whatever data you feed it the most, that becomes your default setting. So if your inner voice is constantly saying, my God, I'm stuck. No, I'm not ready. Men or women always treat me like trash. I always screw this up. Guess what? Your brain is reinforcing that wiring like it's doing reps at the gym. But if you start feeding it new commands, and if you actually start rehearsing success, confidence, calm under pressure, whatever it may be, your brain literally starts to rewire for that. And that is not woo-woo spiritual ask and you shall receive nonsense. That is neuroplasticity 101. And here's where it gets even better. Because if you are tired of feeling stuck, the beauty of all of this is change doesn't actually take long. Because urgency, that enough is enough, it's happening now energy, actually accelerates your rewiring. The second you decide with full conviction, like it is a life or death matter, I am done waiting for change and I'm doing it now, your brain kicks into what scientists call a plasticity window. This is when your focus sharpens, your motivation spikes, and your nervous system starts remodeling itself around this new version of you. So in this episode, I'm breaking down the how your thoughts reshape your brain, how your emotions make that wiring stick, and how the urgency of a decision, that moment when you say today, not someday, is what actually flips the light switch on in that brilliant little head of yours. Because the moment you change your mind, you will start to change your life. Okay, so here's the part that most people skip when they talk about mindset. A lot of people say, just think positive, but they never actually explain why that works. So I'm going to break it down. Every single thought you think fires a specific group of neurons. And the more often you think that thought, the stronger that connection becomes. This is Hebb's law. Neurons that fire together wire together. So if you continually think, I'm not ready, or I always get treated like trash, those neurons will start linking up like freaking best friends. Not because it's necessarily true, but because it's familiar. And before you know it, that belief or thought becomes your default setting, which is the mental operating system in which you live from every single day. But here is the great part about all of this. That same process that wired your self-doubt can wire your confidence. That is neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to physically rewire itself based on what you focus on, feel, and repeat. And once you start feeding it new thoughts, like I'm ready, I always figure things out, I'm safe while I grow, you will start building new circuits that support that identity. And this does not just change what's happening inside of your head. It also starts to change what you start noticing outside of it. Why? Because your brain has this built-in filter. that decides what gets your attention and what doesn't. It is called your reticular activating system, or your RAS, and it is a little network in your brainstem that is basically the algorithm for your mind. Think of it like it's your own personal For You page on TikTok or Instagram. It is the bouncer for your awareness. Its entire job is to filter your world and your experiences based on what it thinks matters to you. So if you are constantly thinking, nothing ever works out for me, your RAS is going to scan your environment to prove you right every single time. Not because that is your fate, but because that is what it's been programmed to do. And the second you shift your focus towards possibility, growth, opportunity, what have you, your RAS will start showing you those things instead. And I'm going to give you a practical example, okay? If you have ever bought a new car or even thought about buying a new car in a specific make or model, once you start thinking about it or after you've purchased it, you start seeing that car everywhere. Everywhere. Not because there just happen to be more of them, but it's because your brain finally started noticing them because it thought it was important to you. Your thoughts tell your brain what to look for, and your brain delivers every single time. It is essentially Amazon Prime for your reality, but without any shipping delays or lost packages. So, with that being said, noticing new possibilities isn't enough to rewire your brain alone. Yes, awareness will open the door, but emotion is what helps make that new wiring stick. Because your brain does not just respond to what you think, it responds to what you feel. Every time you combine a thought with real emotion, whether that be excitement, gratitude, pride, desire, your brain releases a chemical cocktail that literally strengthens those new neural connections. It is like your biology saying, hey, this matters, reinforce it. And just so you know, here's what's being released every time you say something with emotion. You're releasing dopamine, which is your motivation molecule. That is what gives you that let's go energy. You're also releasing norepinephrine, which is your focus and alertness chemical. This is what locks in your attention and sharpens your mind. And then the last thing is acetylcholine, which is your learning and memory amplifier. This is what helps make the new wiring stick. And that little chemical cocktail that's being released whenever you say something with emotion is also why visualization is so powerful. And I know that you have probably heard athletes talk about seeing the shot before they take it. That is not fluff. That is neuroscience. So much so that studies from Harvard and the Cleveland Clinic found that athletes who only visualized practicing showed muscle activation and performance gains almost identical to those who actually physically practiced. They didn't have to go to the gym. They did not even have to go to the gym. And yet their brains still fired the same pathways and they still reaped the same benefits as those who did go to the gym. Why? Because even though your brain is so smart, it's also kind of stupid. It's kind of stupid. And it doesn't know the difference between something that's real and vividly imagined. So when you visualize with emotion, when you can feel it, your brain learns it as familiar. It is like running mental reps that turn into physical readiness. And that combination of thought, feeling, repetition is how you start shifting from who you've been to who you're becoming. And then, of course, like I said earlier, there is one more piece that accelerates everything. This is the difference between slow change and snap your fingers transformation, and that is urgency. Because when you decide, not one day, not when I'm ready, but now. Your brain reacts like it is game time. It stops analyzing and starts wiring. One of my favorite podcasters is Andrew Huberman. Dr. Andrew Huberman, excuse me. He's a Stanford neuroscientist. He is the host of Huberman Labs. If you have not listened to him, please do. Also, he's very attractive. But he explains it like this. When you attach emotion to a decision, especially urgency or intensity, your brain creates stronger synaptic wiring around that behavior. And that is why those I can't keep living like this moments are often the beginning of real transformation, because urgency forces focus. Your brain stops bouncing between the old identity and the new one, and it picks a lane. And once it picks that lane, it rewires fast. So when you decide this changes now, you're not being dramatic. You are literally creating the biological environment for transformation. When that dopamine, norepinephrine, and acetylcholine flood your system, that's when you enter that plasticity window, that short period of time where your brain is extra open to learning and rewiring. And that is also why if you act immediately after deciding, even something small, like sending that email or moving your body, you lock in that new pattern faster. It is like hitting save on your new mindset. And I want to be very clear here, because urgency is not about rushing. It's about anchoring, because your brain learns best when emotion, focus, and action all hit at the same time. So when people say change your thoughts, change your life, they are not being cliche. They are being literal. And every time you choose a new thought, feel it deeply, and act on it quickly, you are physically sculpting your brain for the life that you want to live. Okay, so now that I've delved into the science, let's make it a little real. You understand the wiring, so how do we actually change this? Because this is where most people get stuck. They think awareness alone equals transformation, but knowing is not the same as rewiring. You have to interrupt the loop and install something new. So here's how you do it. Step 1, you have to interrupt the old loop. You have to catch it in the act. The second your brain starts running the old program like, I can't, I'm not ready, this always happens to me, stop it cold. You do not have to shame yourself or spiral. You just have to call it out. Say, that's an old thought. That's not my story anymore. That single moment of awareness breaks the autopilot. That's step 1. Step 2, you have to install the new command. You can't just cancel out the old thought. You have to replace it, because your brain needs a new direction, not just a void, and you have to give it one. And try to use identity-based language. For example, I'm the kind of person who follows through. I'm the kind of person who handles pressure. I'm the kind of person who always finds a way. Because when you phrase it like that, you're speaking an identity and not wishful thinking. Your brain starts building towards it because it loves coherence between thought and action. And then when you're replacing it, you can also amplify it, just like those athletes who didn't hit the gym but gained the reps, with visualization. Close your eyes. See yourself as that version of you. What are you wearing? How do you move? How do people respond to you? And most importantly, what does it feel like? Because when you combine imagery with emotion, your brain fires the same neural circuits as if it's already happening. You're rehearsing success before it arrives, teaching your body, this is familiar, this is safe. And then the last step, you have to anchor it in action. And this is the key, because you have got to move. Action is what locks in belief. You can think new thoughts all day, but until your nervous system experiences it, your brain will not register it as truth. So you have to take one small, immediate action that aligns with your new identity, whether that be sending the message, signing up, applying, not reaching out first. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that you move while the thought is fresh, because that's when the chemicals of urgency, dopamine, norepinephrine, and acetylcholine are flooding your system, telling your brain, hey, pay attention. We're doing something new. That's how you anchor the wiring. Action saves it, repetition seals it. And here's another little pro tip, okay? Your brain loves proof. Every time you follow through, even in the smallest way, your brain's like, oh, we do this now. So start clocking it up. Tally up your wins. Stack those receipts, because every single one becomes evidence that the new version of you is real. And the more evidence you stack, the faster your brain rewires to match it. You're literally teaching your system, this isn't just who I want to be. This is who I am. And that is the exact moment your brain takes it to the next level, from belief to identity. Because once your brain starts seeing consistent proof, it stops treating this as change and starts recognizing it as you. Okay, so we're going to talk the identity loop, how your thoughts become who you are. So here's the fun part. When you start doing this, your brain doesn't just update a belief. It starts building a whole new identity, because your brain isn't just listening to what you think. It's also watching what you do. Every time you think something, feel something, and act in alignment with that, your brain stamps this is who we are now. That is how identity is formed. This is what psychologists call the identity loop. And if you are picturing a circle right now, I want you to think about this. So first you have your thought, and then you pair that with emotion, and then you pair that with action, and then it moves into your evidence, which is that little RAS, right? And then that becomes your belief, and then that becomes your identity. And once something hits your identity level, your brain automates it. You don't have to try to believe it anymore. It's just who you are. That's why when you say things like, I'm so bad at consistency, or I always attract chaos, your brain treats that like a literal instruction. It does not argue. It just runs the code and builds the evidence to support it, because your subconscious loves being right. But again, the good news, that same system can work for you too. You can use the exact same loop to become the version of you who follows through, who regulates under pressure, who doesn't overthink, because it's all about which version you're rehearsing. If you wake up and say, I'm the kind of person who follows through, and they do one small thing that proves it, your brain goes, oh, we do this now. Then that dopamine hits, reinforcing that action. And that's how neuroplasticity turns into transformation, because your brain does not care about your intentions. It cares about patterns. So if you keep repeating the same old ones, it keeps running the same old script. But when you start making even tiny moves that align with your new story, your brain updates the code in real time. It's like saying, hey, new software, we don't run fear anymore. We run forward. That's why identity work is so powerful. When you stop saying, I'm trying to change, and start saying, I am this new version, your nervous system adapts faster. Your body starts syncing with the future instead of replaying the past. You don't have to become him or her someday. You become him or her every time you choose a new thought and back it with action in the moment. That's how mindset stops being motivation and becomes biology. So now that you get this, this is not just theory. It's not just mindset fluff or motivational hype. It is literal wiring. And I want you to know this. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You are not unmotivated. You are none of those things that you think about yourself. Your brain's just been running an old program on repeat. And the best part is that you can override it. Because what you think, feel, and do doesn't just influence your life, it creates it. And if you're sitting here thinking, okay, Paige, cool, that sounds great in science, but what does it actually look like when someone does this in real life? Well, I'm going to tell you, because some of the most successful people you know have used this exact combination of neuroplasticity, urgency, and repetition to change everything. Okay, so I want you to picture this. It is 1992. Jim Carrey is broke. He is unknown, sitting in his beat up car overlooking LA. He pulls out his checkbook and writes himself a check for $10 million, and he notes it for acting services rendered. At that time, he gave himself 3 years, which would land Thanksgiving 1995 from when he wrote the check, and tucks it into his wallet. And every single night, he would drive up Mulholland Drive, look over the city, and visualize the life that he's creating. He would imagine directors saying, I love your work. He would imagine landing the roles, and he would feel it like it was already done. That is not daydreaming. That is repetition and emotional rehearsal. He was literally rewiring his brain to expect success. And then, of course, just before Thanksgiving 1995, almost exactly 3 years later, he lands Dumb and Dumber for $10 million. That is not luck. That is neuroplasticity and urgency. He did not wait to believe it when he saw it. He trained his nervous system to believe it before he saw it. And then there's Michael Jordan. I'm assuming most of us know the story. He got cut sophomore year from his varsity team in high school, and most people would have quit. Instead, he was like, no. He used that moment to build a whole new identity. Every night, he would visualize his name on that roster, visualize every shot before taking it. Why? Because that is Heb's law in real life. Neurons that fire together wire together. He was not just training his body. He was training his mind to become unstoppable. And then there's Sarah Blakely. She is the billionaire behind Spades. She used to sell fax machines door to door. And she got rejected all day long, as you could probably imagine, because she's selling fax machines door to door. But instead of wiring in shame, she trained her brain to reframe it. So much so that every night her dad would ask her, what did you fail at today, Sarah? Because to her, failure was not proof of weakness. It was proof of growth. And that mindset rewired her relationship to fear and rejection. Every no triggered new neural patterns that said, we're learning, not losing. She didn't wait for confidence. She built it failure by failure until her brain saw fear as fuel. And then there's me in this podcast. So a couple weeks ago, I had this huge reckoning with my life. I took a look at my life from all aspects. And I was like, okay, I don't like the way this is showing up. I don't like the way this is showing up. I don't like the way this is showing up. Something has to change. Something has to change. And that change has to be me. And so I sat down pen to paper, and I wrote down those identity statements. I am this. I am that. I am this. And one of those was I am a successful podcaster. I am the next Mel Robbins of my generation. Why? Because I've always wanted to start a podcast. I just never did it. But, and I want to be so real right now. Even leading up to me launching this right now, I still was trying to find excuses. My old programming was still running. It was, well, I need video. I need for it to be perfect. I need for it to be this. And finally, last week, I was like, I am not living the example in which I'm trying to teach. So I hard launched myself on Instagram and TikTok, and I said, hey, my episode is dropping this week. I didn't even have my freaking microphone. I am recording this episode at 3:30 a.m. At 3:30 a.m. because that's the time in which I could record it because my kids are asleep. But here I am. I'm doing it already. And that is the plasticity window and the urgency effect in real time. That was my biology saying, we're doing this. Because again, your brain's always listening. And when you decide, it rewires. All right. If this episode just made your brain light up like, oh my God, I can actually rewire my life, good. Because that's the whole point. Your brain has been listening this whole time. Now it's your turn to show it who's in charge. Don't overthink it. Don't wait until Monday. Don't wait until Monday. Take one small action today that your future self will thank you for, because that's how rewiring begins. If you love this episode, follow Do It Already wherever you listen. Drop a quick review and share it with somebody who's been stuck in their own head for way too long. And if you need more daily mindset resets, behind the scenes, or just a kick in the ass, come hang with me on TikTok and Instagram, because you don't need more time. You just need one moment of decision. So stop waiting, start wiring, and as always, go do it already.